Hello, and welcome to Higher Voltage. Our podcast explores the ins and outs of higher education marketing and touches on all aspects of the business of higher education. My name is Heather Dotchell. I'm a Philadelphia-based marketing and communications professional who most recently led the Marcom division at 2 area colleges. Today, we are speaking with Joe Master, Assistant Vice President for Marketing and Digital Strategy, and Craig Kampes, Associate Vice President for Communications and Marketing at Drexel University. We are speaking to them about Drexel's brilliant and lasting campaign, Ambition Can't Wait. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. Can you give our listeners a snapshot of yourself? Craig, why don't you start?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Craig Kampes. I've been working at Drexel University for a little over a decade now. Previously, my experience before then was with advertising agencies, both small shops to large global agencies in New York. And I took the job at Drexel thinking that this would be my standby until I found a new agency job in Philadelphia. And again, a decade later, I'm here working with Joe. So, but it's been a very good decision, and not just that, it's been a blessing to kind of work on a project like this, like Ambition Can't Wait, which we're going to talk about today. And I couldn't be more excited. Thank you.
Hi, Heather.
Hi, Joe.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. It's great to be here. So my name's Joe Master. I come from the writing side. I was in publishing. I wrote rock and roll reviews, restaurant reviews, and found my way into higher ed around a decade ago. And I guess I'm a lifer now. And working on this campaign with Craig and the teams that we represent has been the highlight of my career for sure.
Excellent. Well, before we get into the episode, I'd be remiss if I didn't remind you that Higher Voltage is brought to you by Salesforce. Today's higher ed marketers are faced with new challenges and must expand beyond their traditional tactics to engage with constituents. Learn how Salesforce empowers institutions of all sizes to unify first-party data, build and measure targeted campaigns, and deliver personalized messaging across channels. Visit salesforce.org to learn more about how Salesforce can help your institution meet its goals. Okay, so rather than start at the chronological beginning of the campaign, and we'll get to that, tell me more about the commercial you shot last week. Craig, why don't you start?
Sure. So one thing we were trying to do with the campaign is we're trying to tell specific and detailed student stories at Drexel University. When we first went out with the campaign, we went with a big, large philosophical approach about what Ambition Can't Wait meant. And now we're telling the detailed stories, the proof of the messages that we're providing. And the last week we actually shot 2 commercials, truth be told, back to back, which was a bit of a challenging experience in this wonderful world of COVID and social distancing. But we had a great team, and we worked with a great director, and we were able to pull it off. And we've already seen some of the first cuts, and we're really excited about sharing it.
Oh, that's a really nice turnaround. Joe, how was it for you over the slog of 2 commercials back to back?
I have to admit, I didn't think it was going to happen. We had originally planned to, all in all, during COVID, we will have filmed 3 commercials. We started planning these commercials last spring, right around when COVID hit. So, to be there on campus, watching the crew and our teams, wearing our masks, doing everything according to COVID code, I definitely had a moment where I was like, this is incredible. And as marketers, we always have those moments whenever we're doing something creative that we came up with. But distinctively this time around, it was pretty special. It was so hard. You had to do the day before COVID testing when your fingers are crossed, because if anybody was to test positive for COVID, there would be no commercial. So it felt like the stars aligned. Those things happen sometimes.
And I think there was such a fear too in terms of what the final product was going to look like, because we just had, I think we learned the lesson of compromise, especially when you have a commercial like this and what you're trying to get across. And we're just very grateful for the team that we worked with, and everyone just being flexible to try to make it happen and doing it in a safe and responsible way.
The few behind the scenes photos I saw looked really interesting and made me quite nostalgic to get back into those sets and build some of that myself. That aspect of our job has been pretty quiet.
Something, Heather, here's something that I was thinking about. Just getting on campus. I had another moment driving in. I was like, oh, man, yeah, this is the brand. Like, this is it. Like seeing the Drexel flags on Market Street and walking in the main building. Like when you're working remotely for so long, it's not that you forget, you don't identify as much that, oh my God, this is a big deal, it's Drexel, but seeing how big it is, it made it a little bit more meaningful.
Okay, so Ambition Can't Wait. Let's rewind then. We've talked a little bit about the commercial and go back to the beginning. Can you give us a general overview of what Ambition Can't Wait is? Joe, you want to pick this up?
Okay, so Ambition Can't Wait is not an enrollment campaign. Was never meant to be, and if we have our druthers, it never will be. It is a reputational elevation campaign. It is about awareness. It's not about butts and seats now as much as it's about moving the needle forward for later on. So it is to get people to know who we are and what makes us special, what our differentiator is, so that maybe perhaps down the road we could then have a message that has to do with enrollment, but that's not the point now.
So why did you pick that then over a sheer numbers game? Craig, you're ensconced or embedded in the admissions unit. So why brand elevation over numbers, especially right now?
So that's a great question. And I think it really starts with, again, like the very beginning, as you had mentioned, like, why are we doing this? What's the why? I feel like at Drexel, like most universities, have a pretty solid direct marketing campaign where we're reaching for admissions in particular in terms of converting the students and getting them interested in Drexel and bringing in leads and getting them to apply to the university. But I think over the years, as we looked at Drexel, for many, many years, we were considered, we are very famous. We're a cooperative education school, and we're known for co-op. Well, that's the number one reason that students really kind of fall in love with Drexel is our educational model. It came to a point where that's all we truly talked about was Drexel and co-op. And I think we lost a little something with that over, and I'm talking hundreds of years, 100 years or so, right? And also, we have a very strong background in engineering, which is great. And we still have a wonderful engineering school, and we're producing wonderful students and graduates. But I think the campaign itself is really more about positioning Drexel and raising that brand elevation that Joe mentioned, in terms of making sure that we're being seen as a comprehensive research university, but also as a leader in experiential education. We're not just the co-op school. And I think that's the part that's missing from a brand perspective and awareness perspective. Yes, we have our direct marketing campaigns reaching the students, but we want to make sure that the public knows who we are and what Drexel is across really in multiple audiences. And that's where we look to influencers in this campaign to say, okay, what exactly is Drexel trying to do, and who are they? But also, in addition, is that we are very aware of the enrollment challenges that's coming in the near future, particularly on the East Coast and the Northeast, with the changing demographics that are happening in population. So it's important for us to, while we believe that we have a strong national reach and a global reach, as we continue to move forward and expand our targeting markets, we have to make sure that we're giving a good impression of who Drexel is before we start to really look from an enrollment perspective and admissions perspective and who we're talking to. And we believe this campaign is positioning us correctly. So as we have our admissions officers traveling around the country and our direct marketing plans activated, that people have a sense of who we are and what we're about.
We've talked about how this is a brand elevation campaign and not enrollment numbers campaign. What is the audience that you're hoping to reach?
Well, we're targeting your IP address right now. Tell me if you got the ad I just sent you.
I'm sure I have.
So we're not targeting students. We're not targeting teenagers. Our target audiences are people aged 35 to 64 in our target markets, Philadelphia, DC, Long Island, Westchester, Central Jersey. Median household income of 150,000 or more. And then specifically, contextually, high school guidance counselors, teachers, C-suite executives, and then we actually are digitally targeting Drexel alums. So very different than your enrollment campaign. So because that's our target, we're aligning our media mix with the places that index high with that target audience. So that's why we've made a point to be on NPR, Morning Edition, All Things Considered, Marketplace, to be in New York Times Sunday Magazine, to be on those television stations that people are watching for their news. And then, for instance, with our display advertising, we want specifically to contextually target people who are reading news items that have to do with the subject of the advertisement. So by that, what I mean is that it's really important to us that, for instance, our fashion ad, Because Style Can't Wait, which really highlights our wonderful fashion program, is going to show up on fashion related content on the internet. And also we'll have a print insertion during Fashion Week this year.
And the end game for that is what?
Awareness.
I think when we look at the people who we are targeting, we call it an influencer campaign, because I think the message that we're trying to get across again is that Drexel is prepared for a changing world, and we have a unique model. Again, that's built, a unique academic model that's built for what the future is going to throw at us. So we want to make sure that the influencers who are reaching students and talking about students are also sharing that message in terms of a sense of an agreement with our approach. And we look at some of the world leaders that are out there today. We're talking about how we're preparing the next generation of leadership to go out in the world and make a difference. We want to make sure those world leaders of today are well informed about the work that we are doing here and the assets that we have in a workforce that's ready for them to come from Drexel University. And I think that's the influencer part too, that's really helpful to us. We want the people who are listening to NPR, reading publications like the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, and watching news programming, because they are in tune with what a changing world is, and that's where we have our media, and that's where we have our message that we are producing. Again, students who are well prepared, ready, and able to not make a difference also in the future, but also right now with co-op too. They're doing it as we speak with experiential education. So I think that's it's a pretty strong message, and I think that's the approach that we're trying to take, especially as we enter new markets and try to reintroduce or introduce Drexel to them.
So how long has Ambition Can't Wait been live? When did it originate? Where did it originate?
I was at Temple at the time. It launched in 2016. I remember catching up with Craig like the month that it launched at the AMA conference that year, and him asking me if I saw the ads in the airport, and I did. So I think, Craig, you could probably speak to the genesis of the campaign.
Sure, yeah. So once it was decided that we were going to develop a new branding campaign or a brand awareness campaign, my team, as well as a few other teams, got together and we worked with Ogilvy in New York to develop what would be essentially Ambition Can't Wait. And, we did the typical, agency process. We met with them, we did surveys, we did our research, and they provided a few concepts to us. And the one that was chosen essentially was Ambition Can't Wait, what they wrote. And we felt that felt like what Drexel was all about. Ambition's kind of a wonky word. I mean, there's so we're very careful about that. As you know, with the word ambition, it can be, Darth Vader is ambitious, right? Scar from The Lion King was ambitious, right? But we believe that our students at Drexel are really driven and smart, and for them to take advantage of this model in which we have is that embraces them. We look at them, and we want to make sure that we were when we saw that campaign and that idea, we wanted to make sure that we really took that word and kind of owned it. And they came with a really bold and vivid art design approach, which was these really dramatic images of students and just in these really vivid design layouts that were really, really eye-catching. And when we went live with that campaign, people thought it raised eyebrows. Number one, that Drexel was advertising, because not many schools do advertise, and we haven't in years. And it was very vivid. And again, I don't have an example for you, but I think what happened was with the campaign, once it started to run, we had it for about a year or two, but we realized it didn't really have necessarily a strong detailed message, except for the fact that it was just bold. And it spoke to that giant Ambition Can't Wait message. So when Joe came on board about 2 years after we started to run, we said, okay, let's sit down and relook at this again. And we have evolved the campaign to what it is more so now, which is really telling stories based upon our founders' philosophy in terms of what Drexel is about, in terms of essentially Drexel preparing students for a changing world.
It's certainly one of those campaigns I remember seeing it as it gained visibility in the Philadelphia market and going, "Oh, that's so good. Damn it." Which I think might be the highest compliment you can give to your colleagues, when you're immediately impressed by it and then you're just kind of mad that it's not yours.
I mean, I was at Drexel the first time around when Temple Made launched, and we were all like, damn it. We were like, that is an incredible campaign. We're all watching, aren't we? We're all looking at each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this originated within the enrollment division. Does enrollment still own it? Is it a shared vehicle? Does the campus embrace it? How has that evolved?
Oh, that's a lot of questions there. I'll take a stab at the first question. This is a complete collaboration between. So we are a centrally decentralized university. So we have 14, 15 colleges and schools that all have their own marketing comms teams, and then we've got some central marketing comms teams. Craig's shop, which is enrollment management, student success. The shop I work for, which is university communications. Then there's a whole other central marketing team for advancement. Craig's team and my team are jointly running this, from the creative to the execution down to the media planning. We do have an agency that we work with to plan the media, a great partner, Love Lane, here in Philadelphia. So it's a complete collaboration, which is, in higher ed, I would say it can be tough with all the silos on our teams to make these things work, because, my division's role is to be the keeper of the brand. So, and Craig's doing marketing efforts to attract and retain students. A lot of times those two things can clash. They don't here. We're completely aligned, and it's taken some really good people getting together, and we made an org chart for the Ambition Can't Wait team. That's what people ask me the most when I see them, or when I used to see them at conferences. It was, how did you guys do this yourselves? And a lot of work and really believing in the vision.
Yeah, just to jump on what Joe was saying, and I know you had mentioned about, how does the university embrace it, and what do we do about that? But before, I would say that, Joe's team and my team, and I think the experiences of really all the members on the team really complement each other very well. And I think we have a variety of different specialties that kind of really come together to form, one team. And I think because we all believe in the vision of this campaign, it hasn't been difficult at all. And, we've been very clear to set down our priorities and make sure what our value proposition is clear. And that's been really a guiding principle to make sure that we all stay on target. So there hasn't been a lot of changes. Yes, of course, we're always screaming at each other to say what we think is the best creative and what's the best message, but it's all been in good fun. And I think that's been the beauty of this campaign. You had talked about, again, how does the school get behind it? And I think getting people to buy into this idea was really important for us. And I'm sure Joe will share this too, but we made sure once we had the idea down how we were going to evolve the campaign to what it is now, that we presented this campaign and this idea to literally everybody at the university. We're very grateful to our leadership for letting us take the reins here. And of course, we shared that with them, what we wanted to do, but then we shared it with faculty, with staff, with students, with the people who run the coffee machines downstairs in the basements. You know what I mean? Like anybody who would listen to us, we were sharing this campaign with, because we wanted to make sure that everyone understood the why, what we're trying to do, and what the purpose of the campaign was. And what was helpful was it originated from our founder. He has a famous quote, A.J. Drexel, or Anthony J. Drexel, that said, "I know the world is going to change, and therefore the university must change with it." So when Joe and I saw that, we were like, that's the hook, and that's the place where it should be, because there wasn't a whole lot people could say that it wasn't on brand, because it was the founder's idea. And I think what we're doing is we're just trying to make this concept come to life of the fact that, we are a university who can change as the world changes. And therefore, when people saw that and heard that, it was easy to get that buy-in. So people believe in it, and they're excited about it.
Yeah, that quote, Heather, has such a big deal. It's on so many walls at Drexel, and any Drexel employee, faculty and staff, students have seen that quote and know it. And it really means something. It's not just co-op. It's that our founder really didn't want to tie down the school in the charter to go any one way. He wanted to make sure that the school could stay attuned and aligned with industry. So, a lot of universities have traditions. We don't have a kissing rock. Our tradition, quite literally, is change. And our oral history is co-op. Our folklore is innovation. And that's where we get to the ambition. It's kind of packed in the charter.
Excellent. So you're talking about how your teams are very aligned to do this, to keep it moving forward, to evolve it, to execute the campaign. Who else is involved? Do you get randomly pitched by members of the community each day?
Yeah, I would say the best example is when memes start showing up. Students are making memes about ambition. Drexel students love using the word ambition. But yeah, people do come and say, hey, this would be a great ad. It happens on a weekly basis. So then it's our job really to mine those stories and find the way forward with new creatives. So it's a lot of fun. It's good to be at a point where people are coming to us rather than us needing to go uncover, stories on our own.
Oh, this is the dream.
One thing I think it's really that we're excited about the design of the campaign is, again, and I know I keep repeating this, but we talk about the campaign speaks about a changing university for a changing world. And if you're familiar with the campaign, one of the sub headlines is that we put a lot on our communications is because ambition can't wait. And that idea shifts a lot. So it's because whatever's important in the world, then what we believe is important in the world should never wait. So what we do is we shift that line because ambition can't wait to a variety of things, because courage can't wait, because innovation can't wait, because technology can't wait, because the holidays can't wait. Like that concept had lots of legs. And what it does is it gives us the ability to shift the campaign and the imagery to what we're trying to say to really any part of the university, because health can't wait, because style can't wait when we think about our media arts and design group, because creativity can't wait. So that in itself has given the university like a badge. It's not just about ambition can't wait, but they get full representation about who we are and what we're trying to do at the university as one. And that's been, when you ask about people who have been able to pitch ads to us, and Joe talks about memes, and that's kind of like the point, is that people feel a part of it because they have their own what we call because line. And that's been, I think, the best part when you talk about getting people excited and buy-in is because they can kind of own a piece of it.
Which is excellent. And the flexibility is, obviously going to bring a huge genesis of ideas forward when you're all screaming at each other in the rooms, as you referenced earlier with your pitch. So when you have this breadth to work on, and you almost have so many choices that it's hard to pick, how do you figure out what to focus on? What are the guiding principles that says we have these 5 new becauses that we're talking about, but we really need to only focus on 1 or 2? How do you narrow that? What guides you to pick the 1 or 2 messages out of the larger pool?
All right, I'll take a stab at this one first. And Craig, you pick up where I fail, right? So we always make sure to exhaust all possibilities when it comes to finding stories to tell. And that happens when the campaign's on, in flight, and in downtimes as well. We're always searching out new stories. And the real important here is that we, as part of our strategy, the media is part of the strategy here. So we want to align our creative with key moments, marquee times, dates, through the calendar year when certain issues and things going on in the world are part of that national conversation. Think about Autism Awareness Month, Election Day, Thanksgiving, all these times during the year that, for instance, social media managers have a content calendar for. We have the same with our media. So, for instance, we have a voting ad. We wanted to make sure that was 100% volume on Election Day. In all markets. Same thing, we'll have an Autism Awareness Month ad. So matching the media with the medium is really important. And then if you take it a step further, like when our commercial runs, we want to be on those places where people are consuming news. So when we come to television, we're on Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, CNBC, and our local 3, 6, and 10 in prime time. And we want to be on NPR. We want to be where people are getting the news of the day with our message.
Yeah. So, and Joe really outlined, I think, our media strategy, which I think is part of this campaign, is also really has been something we've been really looking at as like a feather in our cap for, because we have a really creative media strategy that Joe just outlined by aligning our media to big moments and the calendar within itself in terms of holidays and important moments in time. But also our creative strategy, which is, I think, equally as interesting in the sense that if we're defining, we believe that at Drexel, like our educational model, particularly co-op and the balance of academics and spiritual education, is really a model for the future and for the future of a changing world. So everything that we do with this campaign really focuses on how Drexel is going to prepare their students for a changing world. What's to come? What's the future of work? So we have a really significant rule when we start to look at because lines or imagery that it must reflect something that's changing in the world. It can't necessarily just be something that's status quo. We need it's something that reflects something that can tell a story with an image. For example, like a polar bear grasping onto an iceberg. We know it's about climate change and what Drexel's doing to support that. Or another campaign that deals with the advancement in biomedical materials, and we may have a runner who's running with a prosthetic leg. We're very clear that when someone can see these new and arresting images, that they really speak to that changing world and how Drexel can support that. So that's always a rule for us when we look at an ad. We say, does this reflect that? And one thing for our commercial, for example, a quick story I'll just tell is that one of our new commercials is going to feature a Drexel student who was a photography major. And, she had a photography project, for being a photography major that she had to design. And during COVID and during the method of social distancing, how could you do that? How can you art direct a shot that included people and art direction and materials when she was stuck at home? But she used the power of Zoom and FaceTime and her friends in different areas and crafted an image that was actually about the feeling of COVID. Their students actually designed an area of them sitting together with masks and celebrating 2020 as being this year of COVID. And she did it all remotely. And that shot was celebrated that it actually found its way on the cover of Time magazine. And that's an amazing thing. And that's when we look at ambition, being able to affect change and to work through these obstacles of a changing world. And I think that was a really good example of it. And I think you'll see some of that with our campaign as we move forward.
Yeah, actually, let's dig a little bit more into that, because I remember when that was on Time, and I know that you've been working on the commercial that's related to that. And Ambition Can't Wait is a fantastic piece of text. It's really evocative. But what is just as evocative in what you're doing is your imagery. You mentioned the one with the runner with prosthetic legs. To me, that's the one I always think of when I think about Ambition Can't Wait. I remember seeing that, and there was just something about that image that really resonated. And I think about it periodically, I have to say. Can you tell us a little bit more about the process that you go through to select those images? Because they really... They arrest the eye. They allow you to take in Ambition Can't Wait and whatever your because line or how you're tying that in. And then that makes you want to go in and seek out the further content that's there. So let's talk a little bit about the importance of the images and how you get there, if you don't mind.
The selection of those images, man, Heather, it can be like Thunderdome. We get heated. So I'll give my answer first. I kind of look at it, I will always equate things to Beatles. Okay. I'm a Beatles fanatic. I kind of look at it as your A sides and your B sides. And I think that we go into each year trying to seek out those stories that we're going to actually photograph on our own. those are the ones that are a little easier almost because they can be art directed. We can be there and make sure things are working, although COVID kind of got in the way of that this year. And then there's the concepts. We'll say we want to address this issue. Craig tells a great story, which Craig, you got to tell in a minute, about going to a school of biomed event and having them talk about what they do. And that was the genesis of that one ad that you saw. But we will take a concept, something like a runner with a prosthetic leg. And then we will actually, both my team and Craig's team will go out and try to find that image, high-end stock sometimes. So there's a mix of the photo shoot images that we know that there's a story behind them, that there's an actual person who we know. And then there's the idea of the concepts like that. Craig, you got to tell that story.
So don't build it up too much. But Joe's right. And I think we believe when we first went to the campaign, again, we started to evolve it. We look at universities to be people who can support change, right? And again, prepare people for the future. We are always thinking about that. And when we first went out with the campaign, we didn't want to necessarily start with student stories because many universities just tell their student stories, right? And there's a lot of great student stories, but no one really starts off with a philosophy. And Ambition Can't Wait in itself is that philosophy that we wanted to make sure that came across. So when we're thinking about that, we wanted to go with images in the very, very beginning that were more towards that and broad and almost metaphors of what we were trying to say as we applied like a because line to it. So when we thought about, Joe talks about that conversation as we're looking for images and thinking about, what parts of the university we wanted to highlight. We have a great school of biomedical engineering, and I went to one of our open houses and I was listening to one of our faculty speak, and he opened up his presentation was, "We know how Darth Vader was made."
That's great.
And when I heard that, I was like, wow, like that made me think a lot about that and think about what the world's becoming and how Drexel's going to can lead in that space. And so that we brought that back to the team and said, well, how do we represent that? Not necessarily a student, but the work that's being taught to our students and preparing them to get ready for the future. And we looked and we thought about shooting it ourselves, and then we looked at some really, really nice imagery and other things, and we found that image. Actually, we didn't find that image. We found an image like it, and we said that's the way we wanted to go, because that's what the work is. That's why people want to learn more about biomedical engineering. Let's support that. Let's focus on the end result of why people go to college, not necessarily the rock walls and the beautiful campus. Like every school has that, and we have our benefits there too. But what is the purpose, of going to college? And that's to hopefully to graduate, to have a job that people can, be inspired by what they do. And that's why that image in particular came, because of that one professor saying, we know how Darth Vader was made, in the year, 2020. So that's why we took that approach.
And I'll say, Heather, you've been there. We've all been there as higher ed marketers. When you get an idea like that. So I remember Craig saying something about what he heard at that open house. There's this great creative spark that happens where, all teams go, like everyone went and started searching for the perfect image. And you never know quite how you got to that point. I can't even remember how we decided on that image, but I remember vigorously searching between meetings every day for a week. And, when you find the right one, it's the right one.
Yes, absolutely. So of these different iterations, Joe, what is personally your favorite?
My favorite actual creative execution?
Yes.
Oh man, I like so many. I do have to say that an image that I always go back to would be a voting image. It is an image of a woman wearing a hijab voting. And the because line is because opportunity can't wait. What I loved most about that image is seeing it in print the week before and the week after this past election, New York Times Magazine. To think back to when we were strategizing, when we took the creative in-house for the campaign about what we were trying to do with the brand. And then seeing this a few years later was kind of like one of those aha moments. It was like, this is exactly why we set out to do this.
Craig, what about you? What has been your personal favorite?
I hate being that guy to say it this way, but I don't know if I do have a favorite, because they're also kind of personal to me in terms of, and it sounds so stupid to say it like that, but like, we put so much energy into each one, and because there's not like one ad getting one specific message, like they all have their own unique message, which is again part of the campaign. Like I agree with what Joe said, but like I also feel like that with all of them. Like Joe mentioned the one that we have about autism treatment. So we have a whole autism research center at Drexel that I don't know if many people know about, and we were able to tell the story about how we're making a difference in that space, which personally affects so many people. And the runner one obviously is pretty emotional. We started off our campaign with a rocket. We had so we have alumni working and co-ops, mind you, working on SpaceX. And I just think they're all in their unique way tell a story about Drexel that I don't think has been told very well. And I think that's the part that I did really excited about. And I think that we're telling a story of why colleges exist. And I think that's the part I think that's a lot of fun to me. So sorry for the cop-out answer, but that's just how.
There's a tough one.
You ended so nicely. I was going to make a joke about you being the dad who tells all three of your sons that they're your favorite, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
There's been so many last year's run, because we're smack dab in the middle of this year's flight. But last year we did 17 different creative executions. It's so hard to pick a favorite.
Have you seen data that shows how the community is reacting from this shift from philosophy to more concrete student features?
So there's a few measures. Since we're dealing with brand and awareness, a big measure that every year is we do have a brand study. We partner with Forrester to measure awareness in the markets where we're running. So that's our backyard of Philadelphia, the Philadelphia DMA, DC, Washington, DC, Northern Virginia, Long Island, Westchester, New York. And this year we added in Central Jersey to North Jersey, that I-95 corridor there. And we have a few times since the campaign's launched, done a brand study. So on that front, so we're aware that 97% of Philadelphians know Drexel. We're aware that 78% of respondents in New York are aware of Drexel. 79% of respondents in DC are aware of Drexel. What we're looking for, Heather, which is a very, very, very slow game, is to see if we can push the needle forward in those markets. Craig talked about that cliff that we all in higher ed know is coming in 2025 and thereafter. That's why we're doing this. So one thing that I'm pretty stoked about is that we're up 7% from our first study to our last study, which happened after our last run last spring, in awareness in DC, for instance. We have seen incremental increases in awareness, but we know that's not it. So then we are looking at website data. That story is a hard story to tell. So we do have a microsite that all digital ads are sending people to, drexel.edu/ambition can't wait. And we are looking not only for sessions to the microsite. It would be incredibly reductive for us to just say we want to see year over year increases. We want to see more new users. We want to see people engaging with the site more. So we're constantly changing the content on the site. If you go to it, you'll see it looks like a news center. Because if we're going to have a rocket, we launched this campaign with a rocket. We have to back that up. The rocket ad doesn't really say, this student is working with NASA, or this alum was just tapped to, reinvigorate the space program. We had that on the microsite, and we wanted to be able to guide that user journey. So that's a very long-winded answer to the question, because there is no real easy answer. When you're dealing with brand work, people always ask about this. You have to take everything into account. Something else that we look for is we're looking on social to see what people are saying about us in terms of ambition can't wait. And we're seeing more people share these incredibly inspiring stories, being first generation, college students who come from immigrant families and how they align with the ethos of Drexel University. And you have to take that into account too.
Yeah, I can jump in a little bit too. Joe's right about that. It's just the beauty of the campaign to me also is the fact that it's an umbrella message, something that I guess Drexel really hasn't too much of. And what we've done is we've integrated, the theme and the concept of Ambition Can't Wait all the way through to a pretty sophisticated and robust, again, direct campaign for enrollment. So all those messages and those concepts trickle all the way down to all of those pieces too. Now, again, it's not the campaign in which we're spending the media dollars on is not an enrollment campaign, but we do believe that the messaging is lifting the Drexel brand. I know we've seen gains in quality of students in terms of student applications. And over the last couple of years, we've seen a volume creep up a little bit too. But the quality is something that I'm pretty proud of, is because I believe that we're attracting a different kind of student, and a student who kind of believes in the philosophy in which we're trying to put out there. Now, again, this is a long game, and it's not to bring in students. It's about to changing the elevation of the Drexel brand. So what Joe said is true. We really are most interested in engagement. We want people to understand what Drexel is, and what we believe, again, truly is that we are a comprehensive research university, and again, the leader in experiential education. And because of this model that we have here is the pathway to what we believe is the future of education.
Tell me about your hopes for the sustainability of Ambition Can't Wait.
I feel incredibly lucky that we work for an institution that is making an investment in this kind of work. And as long as we're able, we're going to keep doing this. I don't see it ending anytime soon.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite topics. I think working in advertising too, and I've had a close look at watching campaigns start and end and change and evolve through a variety of different types of fields. And once we started this campaign, everyone was asking me, when will it end, or when do we do the next thing? And I always come back and I say, State Farm's been a great neighbor, a good neighbor, right? I messed it up.
That was great, Craig.
Reverse that. Start over again.
Don't cut this.
So it's not. No, so it's true. So people do. They come to you all the time and say, "When's the campaign going to end?" And I say that State Farm's been a good neighbor for 100 years or so. It's been so long, and because it works for them, and that concept and that message speaks to what State Farm is as a brand, and we believe that this message works for us and what we're trying to do and what we're trying to get across. So I have very little to no desire to change it, but I do have a desire to continue to evolve it and make it stronger. And just like we're doing now, going from big, broad message to student message and to whatever will come next. And, we do have a few ideas, not one necessarily we're looking to share, but how can we be more engaging with the campaign and make people feel more, even prouder to be a Drexel Dragon, but also understand what the message is about, higher education and the value of it, which is, as you know, also sometimes in question too. So we believe that, again, this campaign is good for us, just like a good neighbor is.
It does seem highly sustainable. I'm going to sing it.
Yeah, no, I'm not singing. I'm not doing that. I can barely speak.
So what haven't I asked that you really want our audience to know about Ambition Can't Wait? Anything?
A lot of people ask, well, how can we do this? Or how can we start our own campaign and build it up? And no one gave us a pile of money and resources and said, make this happen. We just had an idea. And when we had that idea, we put it on paper and we made the deck and we showed it to, again, anybody and everybody who would look at it and said, we think there's something here. And because we got people to think about this and understand it, let us try a little bit and try this a little bit and push it forward and continue to push it forward. And then once people started believing and buying into it, we started to see more resources opening up. And we started seeing more people saying, yeah, let's invest in this, or let's think about this. And again, me and Joe aren't even on the same team. And then think about it, that's kind of complicated too. But in this case, we were able to make it work because the idea was good and we thought it through. And so the one thing I might suggest is that for people who do ask, how we're able to get this off the ground, is just really think through your value proposition really, really well, and then stay true to it. And I think that's something that we've done here. As we said, it's Drexel is a changing university for a changing world, and we never try to go off path with that. And because of that, we've been able to stay on message, and people started to believe in it. And I think that's the one thing, is that you don't necessarily have to start with all the resources in the world. You just need the good idea and the motivation to continue it and work at night, work late at night, and give work on weekends just to push it forward. And luckily, we're now in a good position where every day is a joy to come to work.
The first thing that I thought, Heather, is that Craig and I, our job is to get up in front of the room and to pitch it and to share, progress reports and to put the pin in the suit on, right? But we represent around 30 people on 2 separate teams who are all doing such incredible work, from the web positions we have, who are constantly making updates to the site, to an SEO analyst, for instance, on my team who is doing some great work on that front, to so many people on Craig's team, from strategists down to project managers. These are people who, despite their role, despite their hierarchy, are coming up with creative sometimes, who are sitting around a table when we're able to do that, or on Zoom calls, and ripping new creative apart, trying to make the campaign better. And that collective work from all those people is really special. It's been a professional development opportunity for both of our teams, for people who, historically wouldn't maybe be part of something like this, to really dig into a brand campaign like that. And I think that there's something to that. I don't quite know if even Craig and I can quantify the impact until we're much farther along in our years. And for the record, Craig's much older than me, so he'll be older sooner.
Yeah, that's great, Joe. Thanks. Anyway, so but the other thing, the campaign started with a line from Ogilvy, which is one of the the largest and most successful agencies on the planet, and what's also I'm immensely grateful for too. And even though Joe's kind of a pain in the ass, is that our teams are able to take something that started with a global agency, which is basically at the end of the day is a really great line, and then really bring it to life and make it work for Drexel. And my only regret right now is that I can't have our teams on this same podcast with us right now, because me and Joe, I'm sure, contribute a lot, but there's never been a definition of team effort more than this campaign, and it continues to be, as Joe noted. So we're very lucky to have the team that we do, and the ideas that they put forth.
Well, I have to say, when given an open question, that the both of you immediately focused on ideas and team is fantastic. Because I do think we all know that when you get that team that works well together and that has the freedom to transcend their job title, that it makes for a really special environment.
So I appreciate that, but again, it's not hard when we work with when everyone's on the same mission and then everybody wants to do the work. So we're just very lucky in that sense.
We've all been finding ways to keep sane in the pandemic, and I know that both of you have found some fun outlets. Craig, tell us about your great pizza quest and your amazing boys, please.
Oh, you mean the Wyatt 2020 pandemic pizza tour? Is that what you're referring to?
Indeed.
Thanks. Yeah. So I am. I have 3 little boys, and they're all under 11. You can imagine, just like everybody else, we're all struggling with being home all the time and not being able to get out and do things. So my middle child, Wyatt, who I think is going to turn into John Belushi, like he's on that track, is a really big fan of pizza. And my wife and I also spent a lot of time in New York and in the city in Philly, just walking around and exploring, and we couldn't be able to do much of that. So we came with this idea of since we're going to be home and we can't really do much, why don't we drive to some of the best pizza places in the city and get takeout and document it on social media. So we went to some of the great pizza places in Philadelphia and places I've never even been to myself. It was great to explore a lot of the new places, and he was the captain of the plan and the program. So every weekend on a Saturday we would drive to a certain location and try out a pizza and write a little review about it. And we made this like little stupid thing to do on Instagram, but people seem to really like it. And he's like I said, he's like John Belushi. He's like the funniest kid in the world. And so we're so blessed to have 3 kids who like to do the things that me and my wife like to do. So that was it. And I highly suggest it. It's a good way to pass the time during COVID.
And the winning pizza was?
So it was a hard one. I was afraid I was going to get a lot of hate mail for it, but it was Circles and Squares in Fishtown is just something amazing. It's an amazing pizza, and I highly recommend it. You have to order well in advance because they know they're good, and they're very popular. But that was the winner according to Wyatt, all of 9 years old and making these key decisions. So Circles and Squares in Fishtown. Thank you.
I'll have to mark it on my list of things to try. So, Joe, you are a very talented musician, and you also had a bit of a project over the pandemic. Can you elaborate for our listeners what you did? Because I certainly loved it.
It's nice to know that somebody saw it. No. So you're referring to Neil Young, aren't you?
I am.
Okay. So around a month or so into the pandemic, those were some long days we can all recall. It occurred to me that I hadn't picked up a guitar in nearly 7 years. And in a previous life, I was in bands and wrote songs and used to cover Neil Young songs. And I had been listening to him again. And it was a Thursday afternoon. I said, I want to learn Don't Let It Bring You Down, because I was feeling a little down. And I really enjoyed just teaching myself something new that somehow was something old to me as well. And I recorded it, and I did it again the next week and the next week. And I did it for 24 weeks. And each week I had parameters that I would learn a new song that I had not played before, the way that Neil played it. So I would watch YouTube videos and get some guitar tabs, figure out his alternate tunings, and give myself 1 day to practice and then record it. And it was a way for me to do something for me during a time when I was just working nonstop. And it was really helpful. It got me back playing music and writing songs. And it also was a way for me on my own to address what was going on in the world. So there were certain weeks where I picked the songs purposely because I didn't want to say the things myself. And it was actually quite cathartic. And thanks, Heather, you were really kind. You wrote some great messages when I was doing my Neil Young experiment. And it's over now, and I'm writing songs again. So.
Oh, that's great. It's funny because while I can appreciate that Neil Young is a legend, he's not my personal cup of tea. So let me just say I enjoyed your covers more than the originals.
Oh, thank you. I'll let Neil know that too.
Please don't give any more of
his feelings. Don't hurt his feelings.
I'm sure he's okay. He's going to be fine.
You just gave Joe the biggest head ever, by the way. Thank you for
Well, now you have something to yell about in your next meeting. Okay, well, everybody, we're looking forward to more great conversations with higher ed thought leaders in the weeks and months to come. Joe and Craig, where can our listeners find you online? Joe, go first.
You can tweet me at Joseph J. Master. And, also I'm on LinkedIn, and you can find me there.
Craig?
Same as well. I'm certainly on LinkedIn and basically all the social sites. When you're marketing to high school students, you got to kind of know what's going on. I just haven't launched a TikTok yet, and I'm very nervous about that. But I got something.
Oh, come on, you can do it.
So you might see a dancing Wyatt with pizza soon on that site coming soon. So
I will hit follow so fast. All right, and to our listeners, if you'd like to explore our topic further, please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at @HDotchel.